whenever things are coming along that I had not seen before, I really needed to understand if they happened in history so I could understand the mechanics, which is why then I study history.
1929 found the bottom falling out of the New York Stock Exchange, and the panic was on. Overnight, men of wealth were reduced to selling apples on street corners. The prosperity boom of the 20s had exploded like a giant soap bubble.
Confidence and courage are the essentials of success in carrying out our plan.
It was so enlightening. I understood the Great Depression and I understood the 30s. And because of that type of research, I was able to anticipate the 2008 financial crisis and the European debt crisis from 2010 to 2015. I wouldn't have if I didn't study that period.
But Ray, I find it amazing because actually the financial system has changed so much. There's so much more of it. So you think that basically it's patterns, that human behavior is always human behavior.
But there's also a dynamic about debt. When debt and debt service rise relative to your income, it's like plaque in the arteries that then begins to squeeze out the spending. And also because one man's debts are another man's assets. If those don't give a good real return, they will sell. So there's a dynamic that we're facing today in which that's happening to the government. It's squeezing out the debt service.
But so, right, you believe that human nature, no matter at which point in history, almost repeats itself, right? So it could be civil unrest. Well, we talk about populism, that there are patterns that you can see over the last, 2,000 years.
Yes, but that's not just a belief. It's an understanding of the cause-effect relationships, the mechanics that show over repeatedly.
Right, talk to me about the 5 forces that you see shaping the world.
Throughout history, these same 5 forces work together to shape the world. The first is the money, debt, markets, economy force. You know, debt increases relative to GDP, that whole dynamic. Okay, money.
Yeah.
The second is internal order and disorder, conflict. So that what happens is when there are larger wealth gaps and values gaps, then there are greater conflicts and that dynamic. The third dynamic is geopolitics, the international world order. How does it operate? So since 1945, for most of it, we've been in the United States-led multilateral world order. Now we're having a unilateral world order with greater conflict. Number 4, acts of nature. Droughts, floods, and pandemics have killed more people than wars and toppled more orders. So that's certainly an important influence, particularly related to climate. And number 5, over long periods of time, the biggest influence is man's learning, particularly of new technologies. So these forces interrelate with each other, you know? The international creates defense expenditures and technologies change everything.
But, Ray, all the 5 forces are being disrupted. Do you worry that this is even more unsettling than in previous cycles?
The previous cycles were pretty unsettling, you know. If you take the most analogous period, I would say we're in a period that's quite like 1937, 38. You have a debt issue. Yeah. You have the internal conflicts of wealth and how things should be run. Disorder existed. 4 democracies stopped being democracies. So we're in a period that's very much analogous. That's plenty to worry about. Of course it can be worse. Right. Because our power to hurt each other has never been greater.
I hate asking this because I don't like throwing around the word world war, but, you know, could we be close to another world war?
We're in wars, okay? There is a financial money war, there's a technology war, there's geopolitical wars, and there are more military wars. And so we have a civil war of some sort, which is developing in the United States and elsewhere, where there are irreconcilable differences.
So how do you see it being settled? Actually, where do you see the U.S. going? Does it get settled? Does it
either we will rise above it and realize that our common good is going to necessitate us dealing with it so that what works for most people is going to work. I think that's a little bit idealistic. I have to be a practical person. And I would say that I think that these conflicts will become tests of power by each side.